NeverDead was another game I was looking at a few times when I was visiting a local secondhand store. It caught my eyes a few times, and I finally caved in and purchased it. I was going to save it for a Halloween review, since the game involves an immortal demon slayer, monsters, and an agency that hunts said demons. But I decided against it because, quite frankly, this game isn't really that good, and I have better options for this October. And that's sad, because this game really does have some awesome potential. You play as a man named Bryce, who is a demon hunter from ages past. In the opening cutscene, you see him fighting alongside a woman named Cypher, battling what is possibly the most WTF'd up, ugly-ass demon I have ever seen. You then get into an immediate battle against his mother, who also functions to teach you the most basic portions of the combat, including the gunplay and sword fighting. After that, you get a scene where some agent grabs Bryce and forces him to help her on her mission. You'll find out that she works for some government agency that contacts Bryce to hunt down any monsters that seem to pop up. And that's because he's been doing this for many, many years. Also trying to hunt down the evil god that's punished him with eternal life. And if you're curious, Bryce was punished because he tried to kill that god. Once it killed Cypher, it stabbed Bryce through the eye and implanted him with a demon's eye, hence the orange one. Because of this, he becomes immortal, doomed to constantly hunt down the monster who did this. This alone can make the gameplay interesting, but instead it's a boring, repetitive, frustrating mess of a stab, shoot, get dismembered, roll around, repeat kind of deal. But perhaps I should slow down so that the game is easier to understand. NeverDead is a third-person action game. I'd call it a shooter, but since there's some melee attacks, I'd consider it somewhat close to being a Devil May Cry style game, with much less emphasis on defeating really cool enemies, and instead on button mash until whatever is in front of you falls. But let me slow down further and explain. Gameplay goes like this. You move Bryce around, going through checkpoints and completing whatever objective is given you, which typically move from room or hallways 1 to room or hallway 2. Usually, you're given a few enemies to attack, and at specific points the way will be blocked until you defeat a near-endless barrage of demons. In addition, you may see enemy spawners, which take an unusually high amount of damage before being destroyed, and these must be broken down before you can continue. Anyway, you can opt to switch between firearms and sword easily enough by simply using the appropriate button. Switching guns can be a bit of a pain in the ass because you can only cycle through one way, so if you're frantically trying to find a specific weapon and accidentally pass it, you have to start cycling through again. But the R1 and L1 buttons shoot your guns and the right analog stick functions as your sword. So yeah, your sword. I don't know why anyone thinks that sword controls work well when you map them to the movement of the right analog stick. I'd rather mash a button or two to create combos, not recklessly move the analog stick around in any direction to constitute a slash. Yet for as awkward as this may feel, it's still easier to use your sword than your guns. This is because the action is so fast paced that you'll be missing more of your shots than hitting. The only time I could say that your firearms are really useful are against bosses or the slower moving beasts. Even some of the bosses, especially the later ones, are quick, and so you really can't aim quick enough to strike before they move away from your reticle. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but now we move on to the main gimmick with NeverDead, the limb dismemberment. As I said, Bryce is immortal, and therefore, there's not really your standard health meter, or even bloody border system. Instead, Bryce's limbs are given their own bits of health. Once one of them is damaged beyond repair, they'll just fall off of his body. We can continue fighting though, although getting a slight disadvantage. Lose a leg and Bryce will hop around on the other. Lose both legs and he'll fall to the ground, flopping around until you can reattach one. Lose an arm and you lose the ability to dual wield your weapons. If you have two different weapons in each arm, you can't aim with the lost one. Lose both arms and you're reduced to a stupid, useless little kick that doesn't do jack shit. But the biggest threat to Bryce is when his head pops off. That's because he's then completely defenseless when rolling his head around. And this is the only time that the game can end. I'll get to that next, but I will first say that there are some perks to purposely dismembering yourself. 1. You can throw your arm like a grenade, once you've upgraded Bryce's skills to do so. 2. You can opt to throw Bryce's head into smaller areas that his body can't reach, used mainly when completing an area requiring a puzzle to progress on. The only other reason would be that you can throw an arm and still fire with that arm, although you can't aim with it, and are more so just blind firing and hoping an enemy just casually walks into the crossfire. It's really more so a waste of ammo, but the feature is there and you do get a trophy if you're good enough at it, or lucky enough. Now, let's get to the only way you can get a game over. You'll see small blue creatures that can't do any damage to Bryce called grandbabies. Why? Who the hell knows? All the creatures in this game have pretty stupid names. But anyway, if you're just rolling along and a grandbaby sees you, it'll attempt to inhale and digest Bryce's head. If the monster manages to put Bryce's head in their mouth, you'll be given a bar on the screen. If you match the cursor to the highlighted area, you're safe, and Bryce's noggin is just spit back onto the playing field. But if you miss, his head is digested, eternally doomed to be lodged in the grandbaby's stomach. This is the only way to get a game over, other than having one of your NPC followers fall down and not be saved by Bryce. Now, you might think that this would make the game stupidly easy, but it's not. In fact, in later stages, the game gets ridiculously challenging because you have a ton of the grandbabies, and about 80% of the attacks you get thrown at you will immediately dismember your entire body. This comes to a head in the final battles, no pun intended, where I actually quit because although I got really good at evading the grandbabies and getting attached to the body again, it would be common to immediately be exploded again a second or two later because of the unforgiving barrage of attacks. And after about an hour of fighting this damn creature, I just gave up and turned the game off. And because of this frustration of relentless attacks, the combat gets old quick. It's literally run through the stage, shooting enemies, get hit, and rush to get your head back on your body. And other than new weapons, there's not a lot of variation. The enemy types never change. There are some skills that you can learn by earning XP, but it's nothing worth talking about. There are some mediocre attempts at having some platforming sections put into the game, but this game just should not have anything that resembles precision. Hit detection when trying to pick up items is pretty sketchy. Rolling around to grab limbs, which I should add is the way to reattach body parts, can be irritating because I swear sometimes I roll over a limb, yet it doesn't pick it up. The camera can be troublesome, not always moving to where you need to be, which can be a huge issue when dismembered. But most of all, the game just isn't smooth. It just feels like the whole thing is choppy, from the walking animation to the sword attacks. Not to mention that on the street level, if you miss a jump and fall into lava, Bryce's head will somehow be popped into the sky and will magically be rolling, yet floating, above the ground. You know, I never mentioned that gauge on the bottom of the screen. When losing a limb, regardless of which one, the gauge will start to fill. Once it's done, you can press L3 to immediately regenerate all lost body parts, even if it's just your head. Sometimes you can attempt to wait out this meter, but other times you cannot. It's up to you and your situation to dictate which method you want to use to reattach all of your body parts. Although the cinematics of the game are just plain amazing, the actual level designs are lacking. There's nothing original about the environments, and each one seems to drag on forever. The worst culprit is the sewer level, where you have to intentionally ignite Bryce and use his fiery body to light up barrels to illuminate the way. This is a total pain in the ass, as even when the barrels are lit up, because the sewer still isn't easy to navigate. So I know I backtracked a few times accidentally. I was so happy when this damn level was completed. To make the game even more boring, Bryce constantly shouts repetitive quotes. He just doesn't shut up, and there's not a large variety of things he'll say, other than your normal scripted stuff. Yes, this was another one of those games I muted after a few stages. One final thing. Although the bosses are actually somewhat fun, you'll note that each one has specific weak points. The first one you fight, Sword Pig? All I'm gonna say here is glowing butthole. I don't need to go on about that. And I believe that's all I have on NeverDead. It's just not a fun game, and really shows that Konami's game quality has dropped with the more modern games. It could have been fun. Running around slaying demons while being immortal? That could have been a blast, but I feel that the way they chose to give you a game over was just kind of eh. Even for a bargain bin game, I'd say pass on this one. It's just not really worth your time. Final score? 5 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.